Pat Shurmur is the Broncos' new offensive coordinator. What does it mean for Drew Lock? And what will the offense look like on the field? Hello from inside the Broncos Media Center. I'm Phil Milani, alongside the Brain Trust.
Oh, God.
Matt Boyer, Eric Dalala, and the main man, Steve Atwater. Guys, what kind of coach are the Broncos getting in Pat Shurmur?
Well, Coach Vic Fangio at the end of the season said he wanted a big play offense, something that was more efficient than what the Broncos had in 2019, and that's what he's going to get with Pat Shurmur. He's always had very efficient offenses, big plays. You think about that year in Minnesota he had with Case Keenum and the Vikings, that playoff run they made. So I think that Vic Fangio is going to get exactly what he wants.
Yeah, I mean, he's got 2 decades of NFL experience. He's been a head coach on 2 different occasions. Connects with the guys, it sounds like. We heard Stephon Diggs in Minnesota says he adapts the offense to what players do well. He adapts in games. Obviously, those are 2 things the Broncos need to get better at in 2020. I think he sounds like a guy that can do it based on his experience. He's been a tight ends coach. He played offensive line in college. He's worked with some great runners, great passers. So, can kind of marry everything together pretty well.
Yeah, what kind of coach do you think they're getting, Steve?
Well, a guy who's going to spread it out. We had a lot of plays that absolutely didn't work this last year, unfortunately. We had some blown assignments, and you don't know who you attribute that to. Do you attribute that to the system, or do you attribute that to the guys not executing? But hopefully he'll at least get a system across to the guys where they'll be able to execute. But I think it's going to be, like you said, Matt, just a offense where there's more shots taken, more deep balls thrown. And one thing that I've noticed from some of his offenses, he likes bell cow running backs too. He likes to give a guy a ball, a lot of times throughout the season.
You're talking about guys like LaShawn McCoy, Dalvin Cook in Minnesota, last year
Jackson,
Saquon Barkley.
St. Louis, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Is that good news for Phillip Lindsay?
I think so. I think that Phillip Lindsay has said multiple times, hey, I can be a bell cow back. I can be the guy to carry that type of load. Now, that's not to say that Royce Freeman's not going to play a role, but I think if given the opportunity, Phillip Lindsay wants to show, hey, I can carry the load here.
Well, and he likes them to do it in a bunch of different ways. Not only does Phillip Lindsay run between the tackles, but Shurmur incorporates the screen game a lot. And so I think that maybe you could see some more of that with Phillip Lindsay, really get him going there. And even though they run a lot of 3 wide sets, they run the ball a lot. When he was in Minnesota, only 1 team in the NFL ran it more than the Vikings did.
Yeah, and I think that will be a good thing for the Broncos, because we do have 2 solid running backs with both Phillip Lindsay and Royce Freeman, and hopefully they'll get a chance to play an integral part of it. But again, he's had some good receivers too. Deshaun Jackson in Philly, yeah, man, had great years. In Minnesota with Diggs and Adam Thielen, both having really good years. Not necessarily 1,000-yard years, but they were really close to that. And also the tight end, featuring the tight end, Kyle Rudolph up there. So yeah, I think they're going to spread it around nicely.
Well, for the Broncos offense, it's another reset. He's going to be their 5th offensive coordinator in the last 5 years, but the Broncos coming off a season where they were 28th in scoring. They had 9 games where they scored 16 points or fewer. But what do you think it means for Drew Lock? Because it seemed like at the end of the year, he and Rich Scangarello sort of had some chemistry going.
Yeah, they had some chemistry, but that's not to say he can't have chemistry with Pat Shurmur either. You look at what Shurmur did with a young quarterback in Daniel Jones last year. 24 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, a little over 3,000 yards in 13 games. I think that's kind of the baseline that Drew Lock should look at and say, hey, you know what, I can have success in this offense if given the opportunity.
When you think about with some of the guys that Shurmur's worked with, Case Keenum, Sam Bradford, Daniel Jones, Drew Lock could prove that he's the best guy that he's ever coached at the quarterback position. I do think one thing Shurmur will help with is they're going to score points because they're going to take shots. They've got Courtland Sutton, they've got Noah Fant, you've got to take advantage of those guys. The Broncos haven't been in the top 20 in scoring since 2015. Every year in the last 6 seasons, Pat Shurmur, his offenses have been in the top 20, so I think the Broncos could show immediate improvement.
Yeah, and I think that Drew Lock is really looking forward to this opportunity. Now, with those other teams, they also had a speedy wide receiver as well. Minnesota, of course, Thielen and Diggs, taking the top off. And then in Philly, Jeremy Maclin taking the top off of it, had a big year, 1,300-yard season. So I think the guys are pretty fired up about the possibility of putting a lot of points on the board.
You mentioned the time that he spent in Philadelphia. From 1999 to 2008, he was with a guy named Andy Reid. Is this Broncos offense going to look like the Chiefs now?
I mean,
Phil, you've said over and over,
Yeah.
the Broncos got to beat the Chiefs. They're trying to look like them now
Yeah.
with Pat Shurmur. So,
Exactly.
hey, if they're anything close to what Patrick Mahomes is able to do with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, man, even just a step in that direction would be great.
Yeah. So, but with that being said, what do we got to do? We got to add a speedy receiver or two to that wide receiver room. Now we have the Cortland Sutton, who's the deep ball threat, who can go across the middle, make a lot of great circus catches. But we need one guy to be able to just take the top off of defenses and make guys have to back up to where we can get a lot of those underneath routes completed.
Well, it's an exciting time here in Denver. New offensive coordinator. We'll have to wait until they hit the field to see what it actually looks like. All right, that's going to do it for us. For Steve Atwater, Eric Delisle, and Matt Boyer, I'm Phil Milani.